Facil.ai takes a holistic approach to achieve a measurable impact on communities with a focus on energy use and CO2 consumption using artificial intelligence. With me is the CEO, Keith Gibson. So great to have you here, Keith, and explain Facil.ai. Give me an overview of the company.
Okay, thank you very much. Facil.ai uses artificial intelligence to better manage your commercial and retail buildings and make them more energy efficient.
So, and energy waste is a big problem globally in
Yes,
buildings.
it is.
How big of a problem is it, would you say?
Well, it's huge because buildings actually use 40% of all energy and they waste, unfortunately, 30% of that. So it's a huge problem. It's really a problem worth solving.
And you're using artificial intelligence to, I guess, determine where is that energy being wasted? How can businesses and property owners and things like that bring that in and make that all operate more efficiently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So unfortunately, buildings are really built like a lot of things. They're engineered for first cost and value. They call it value engineering. But they're really not built for energy efficiency in mind, and nor should they be. I mean, comfort is paramount, protection of the occupants. But after a while, that performance degrades over time, and so this is just like an automatic tune-up in the background, constantly optimizing the systems.
What kind of results have you seen as you've studied these, where a lot of energy is being wasted? I assume overnight, there's probably lights on all over the place. Like, what do you see how some of these are run, these businesses?
Yeah, good question. It's counterintuitive actually, because a lot of the energy waste actually, you could be taking advantage of the building, the cooler temperatures at nighttime. So we have this notion of a building being dead as a doornail at night, and nothing could be further from the truth. You could actually prepare the building at night for the occupied times during the day and save on energy during the day because you've already got a head start, if you will, on the cooling.
What are some of the trends that you're finding with your artificial intelligence data gathering?
Well, definitely more interaction with other resources like the grid is a big one. The buildings are able to respond in an autonomous fashion, so you're not as reactive to heat waves and sudden increases in occupancy. There's this kind of forward prediction capability that you have. Okay,
so then that helps you prepare.
Yes,
and be able to plan things that way.
Yep, I always use the analogy of a car. I mean, if you were if your Tesla was driving the way we drive buildings, it would go off the cliff and before you correct the situation. So this is about being proactive and not just reacting to whatever's happening externally.
So you're studying electricity, HVAC, anything else that your AI looks at?
Yes, absolutely. The weather is the number one driver. And that's why the energy use of a building perfectly corresponds to the weather, because that's the biggest external effect. And the second one would be the occupancy that you mentioned earlier.
Okay. And
so weather's a big one.
Explain how weather affects business.
So the thing that buildings have with AI is that ability to have this forward prediction that I mentioned earlier. So, for example, if there's going to be a heat wave, it's unseasonably cool, perhaps today, but if there's a heat wave anticipated, the building can get ready for it, much like I alluded to earlier. So the building can take advantage of the cooler operating conditions at night and actually ventilate the building and get its profile down cooler. And then that's going to negate a little bit of the energy that you would have normally spent that during the day when the heat wave occurs.
Yeah. Now, in some of your work so far, what kind of energy reductions have you seen?
We can get 5 to 10 to 20% energy reduction with no loss of comfort.
Interesting. And you also work with the Internet of Things.
Yes.
Okay, explain how that works.
Well, it goes back to that kind of connectivity where we're talking the building can now be connected to, the grid. It can be connected to scheduling systems like for a movie theater, ticket sales, all sorts of external sensors and devices and information, really. And it's really about the information.
Yeah, that is very interesting. What's your roadmap for growth?
They're just connecting more things together to the building, making them smarter and more autonomous. I actually remember when I was a kid, I've always liked buildings, and I actually thought I wanted to be an architect. But I remember my parents gave me this World Book Encyclopedia, and so we promptly, me and my brother, instead of reading it, we actually started making buildings out of the books. And so we stacked up these fictitious skyscrapers, and we had the Hot Wheel tracks lined across the buildings. And I remember the Hot Wheel came up to to the building and I opened up the door. My mom walked in and she's like, what are you doing with these books? And I was like, look, Mom, we made these buildings and the building's so smart. The car came up and it opened the door for it because the car talked to the building, So I've always had this vision, ever since I was a little kid of, interactive buildings and smarter and more autonomous operations. So
and look at you
really
now.
like I'm living my dream,
So how do you think buildings will operate in the future?
Much more hands off.
Okay.
So, the AI and machine learning is relentlessly logical. So it's going to make logical decisions based off of forecasts and other information that humans, we can't assimilate that much data that fast. And so I just think, they're going to the operation of a building will just be kind of an afterthought. Like you won't even think about it. It'll just be comfortable, energy efficient, and safe.
And they'll all be connected, it sounds like, to the internet. And they'll all be connected
and talking to each other and talking to your vehicle and talking to the weather station and
Okay. It's going to be a fascinating world that we're going to be living in another generation.
Yeah. I remember one of my favorite books was called The World of Tomorrow. And I had that when I was like 9 years old. It was actually what Disneyland, Tomorrowland, was fashioned after, and they had all these cars on these on the roadways automatically driving, and the buildings were so beautiful and neat and clean, and I always had that vision in my mind ever since I was a little kid.
And now here you are, kind of making it come true.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, Keith, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.